backstory, and I'm only going to spend about 30 seconds on it. I started as a DJ when I was very young. My parents raised me in a nightclub. My dad was the DJ, my mom was the bartender. And I probably shouldn't have been there, but I was. And I learned the industry and I learned the business. And I did my homework over in the corner. And then on Fridays and Saturday nights, I pressed play on records and cassette decks for my dad when he would take a break. And that led into me creating a business and not going to college. And then eventually, with that business, I had multiple. I sold my largest business in 2019 at the time, and it is event based. We had about $2 million a year of special event entertainment and about $8 million at the time of event production. So about 15 years ago, I started doing executive coaching, and along that route, I learned how to do the things that it sounds like you guys are very familiar with, which is to talk about goal setting, strategic planning, and all the tidbits that businesses need to succeed. Okay, so in a nutshell, I'm a event guy at my heart. I still DJ. I DJ'd last Saturday night at Rivers Casino based on a guest invitation, which was super fun to get to do. But I'm a dad. Married my high school sweetheart, got 4 kids, and I'm super approachable, and I just like helping people. Period. That's what I do full time. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a real quick glimpse into what we call these little mentor pods mini lessons. We're going to spend about a half hour talking about staying booked year round, and it's a micro lesson that breaks down all the things that I believe, being in the industry for a while, that we consider that we knew at one time, but that we've since forgotten. And I think that, by the way, that just a little glimpse into how I think. That's how I think about all business lessons. And that's probably what you were saying earlier about what David was saying. And that's that I don't really go after shiny things very often, nor do I support it as a coach or a consultant. I want you to stay with the basics and the blocking and tackling because that's what leads to success and the consistency, the quality of what we're trying to do. What I'm going to do is share my screen right now and pop in. I'm also going to give you guys an opportunity to shoot me over an email. That's the simple way we're going to do it today to give you the slides. So if you guys like what you see, I'll hook you up with all the content that we're going to be displaying here today. So this lesson today, we're going to be talking about staying booked year round. I am going to ask that you participate a couple times inside the chat. So if you can make sure that you know how to get to the chat window, that would be great. I also do my best to monitor the chat. If you have a question or you want to raise your hand or say something, I'm going to set my gallery up so I can see your faces. When I teach every week, we teach live in Mentor Pods. So I'm very used to looking at your facial expressions and trying to see whether you're engaged. So if I see you laughing randomly, I know that you're looking at your Instagram or your Facebook and watching a meme because I'm not that funny. And that's kind of how we roll. Okay, so staying booked year round. This entire lesson can be described in this summary. First thing I want you to do is to understand your seasonality. Each of you, if you were tied to the event industry in one way or another, you have seasonality of some sort. You probably have 2 really great quarters and 2 quarters that aren't so good or are horrible for whatever's happening. Second thing I want you to do is to decide if you want to change it. We're going to dive in on the idea that sometimes seasonality is not a curse. Sometimes it is a blessing. Why? Could be a blessing based on your sanity. It could be a blessing based on your work-life balance, whatever you've chosen to create. But a lot of people say, at least in crowded rooms, man, I wish I was busier in Q1. All right, that's the quarter, by the way, in the upper Midwest. We're looking at Q1 is dead for what's happening. Now, we're going to talk about different parts of the country here in a little bit. Third thing is to plan your money. And what I mean by that is I want you to understand your financials and the swings that are required to be endured for your cash flow. So sometimes you probably could be really, really well set up to be profitable throughout the year, and you just spend too much at certain times of the year. So instead of being really frustrated with the fact that we don't have money twice a year, what if we just change the way we're leaning into our spending? And if that were a case, we might actually be okay. We're going to plan that money. Fourth is to choose your methods if you have chosen to make a change. If you're going to make a change in what you're working on and you decide to get busier during your off season, or as we're going to tell you today, get busier during the on season, and there's a lot of credit to be had for that second thing that I just mentioned. Whatever you do, we need to choose what those methods are because we want to stay away from getting distracted from trying to do all the things all the time. You've probably heard from David, and I'm going to say that over and over and over. If everything's important, nothing's important. We need to have a goal. We need to have a point on the horizon to what we're trying to get at. And that comes at a macro level and it comes all the way down to the micro level. Next thing we're going to be talking about is number 5, the market. Market what you're doing quarterly and then take that action. I want you to make the plan step by step of what it's going to be. And it doesn't have to be difficult. We just need to write it down and stick to it. And then last, I want you to take those things that you've done and I want you to review them quarterly or monthly, annually, and then course correct. I'm not a real big fan of going to deploy something and then a year later waking up and going, well, how did that go? Well, I would rather that we be not too often, but checking on it, whether that thing is weekly, if it's like a data thing for spending money on Google Ads or Meta or something, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's probably a separate lesson. And other ways of doing things. I want you to be course correcting constantly. Just like I'm not a big fan of doing an employee evaluation once a year and throwing the binder down on the table and saying, what you did well was, and what you did bad at was. No, I'd rather have a weekly conversation, a discussion, or monthly. That way we can get better, faster, and all be happier. All right. So first thing we're going to do is to understand and decide your seasonality. Okay. Just a reminder, this whole thing is supposed to be just the spark of a conversation. Hopefully, this is going to lead you to additional questions, and you're either going to ask each other about what's happening, or you're going to reach out to me. Either way, I'm completely open to that. In the event that you want the slides or you want to connect, my email address right there, matt@mentorpods.com, and I will send you over the slides from today. Just shoot me an email that says, "Hey Matt, nice to meet you. I would like the slides," and I'll send them right over to you. All right. Okay. So, what are the two busiest months for your business? Will you please go to the chat and tell everybody what are the two busiest months for your business? We're looking for 100% participation here, or at least those that are cam on. So I'm going to go ahead and wait and read these as we go. So we've got October and April. Can you also do me a favor after you type in your months, or if you haven't done it yet, tell me what region or at least what state you're in, city and state, that your business operates? I missed the part if you guys are all in the same city.
I'm glad you covered that because we do have some people that are from California and other parts of the country here today.
Perfect. Okay. All right. What I will do though is I will stick to in certain examples, if asked, I will stick to my knowledge of what's happening on the left coast about other things, which is beneficial. Okay, good. So we've got two busiest months, October and April, December, March. A little bit of consistency here. Okay, Rocky, you're in NOLA. You have some unique seasonality there. November, December. Got it. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, so now let's flip this over. What are the two slowest months for you? The two slowest months. Everybody refine that chat and let's put in what are your two slowest months? We know that when it gets hot, things start to change a little bit in certain parts of the country, which is exactly the opposite of how we think in the Midwest, and even sometimes in some of the southern states in the Northeast. One thing holds true across the country, unless you're a destination type of business that has its own seasonality, and that is that you likely have one quarter that isn't great, or two quarters that aren't great, and two quarters that are fantastic. All right, so the goal of this session today is to talk about how to stay booked year round or to stay booked as often as you want to be for what's happening. Thank you for sharing that information inside the chat, everybody. I appreciate that. So up on the screen, I'm going to show a chart that is live data having to do with multi-op DJ businesses in the Midwest region. So this is an aggregate piece of information from Mentor Pods. We've had about 150 business owners and their teams go through the program. And when we're looking at volume, this is the peak season of what's happening for Midwest region DJ events. You can see it peaks out there right around March and October. All right, sorry, May and October. We normally see this in the Midwest for a couple reasons, just to explain the data, and that's that homecoming season in the fall, wedding season, and bar and bat mitzvahs all overlap each other, all at the same time. So any businesses that are going to see frequency, whether that's floral, planning, transportation, there's a peak for most of those. Over here on this end, we have the exact same thing, but in reverse. We see prom season, we see weddings starting to ramp up because it's getting warmer, and we see people scrambling to fit in those bar and bat mitzvahs before the end of the school year, right? So there are some overlapping things that attribute to that. We can see that type of concept happen in every region of the country. Every one of you could take your bookings, whether it's based on your booking volume or your booking revenue, and they don't always look that way and look identical, but it should be similar at least. And you should make some sort of map like this for yourself. So a recommendation or a takeaway is if you've never done it and built yourself a plot like this of your bookings, I would suggest that you do it because it's going to make you reframe how it is that you think about your seasonality. Some of you are going to go, oh, snap, this is way better than I thought. I'm not as slow as I thought during these months. And some of you are going to go, oh, snap, this is a lot worse than I thought it was during this time frame when I thought I was actually okay. Either way, sometimes seeing it with the data that way can be very, very helpful. Okay. So this chart right here, this is called a radial chart, and we call it radial calendaring in Mentor Pods. This view is actually two pieces of information that we put on top of each other. One is the closing ratio of the business, and one is the volume of events. And I'm going to explain it with my cursor just for a second, because it can be hard to read. This number one right here represents week number one all the way through the year. Okay, so this is the end of June leading into July right down here, and then all the way up here till to December. Okay, week one through week 52. So what this is saying is that the red line represents the closing ratio as a percentage. So right at the top of the year, the closing ratio of the company is 30%. They're doing pretty well, drops down to 25. You can see they peak over here in, end of February. And look what happens. The blue line represents the number of events that that company does. So right around here, they're doing anywhere between 0 and what looks to be about 10 or 12 events until they get to the month of May. Watch what happens. Things jump up in the month of May, okay, because this is a Midwest concept here. And now they're doing 25 events. Look what happens to their closing ratio. Their closing ratio jumps from 30% all the way down into the teens and then holds there. I'd like somebody to raise their hand actually visibly. Show me your hand on the screen. And I would like to call on you if you can tell me why is it that their closing ratio dropped when their volume picked up. Stacy.
In my opinion, and with me, it's because I am too busy focusing on the events and not focusing on the selling.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, we didn't go over in the top of the introductions how big your businesses are, but I can tell you most of the businesses at the very bottom end of being healthy are going to have about 175 to $200,000 of revenue per employee. And on the top end, if we're really, really healthy, it's in the 350 range, and that's still for service-based businesses. So for some of you whose businesses are even smaller than that, you're the only person. You're the one that's doing sometimes. And I know some of you are hiring the services out, the bookkeeping, the marketing, the sales, all the things, and obviously the production of what's being said. So Stacy hit the nail on the head. When you get busier, you get worse at a whole bunch of other things. And sales is one of those things. Sales is the lifeblood of your business. So right off the bat, I would like you to take this away from our conversation today. If you simply paid more attention to your sales when you are busiest, your business would improve with no other effort. If you simply kept track of your closing ratio and your sales activities when you are busiest, your business would improve by double digits. Okay? So that's a nice little takeaway from the lesson. So now I want you to decide, once you understand what's happening with your seasonality, are you actually okay with it? And this is this example I have on the screen is the tiki bar versus the ice skating rink. If you set out to create a business and it's a tiki bar and the tiki bar is on a certain beach that has seasonality, we know that we're not going to sell a lot of drinks when it gets cold. But that's the life I've chosen, right? If I open up that tiki bar, that's the reason. Versus the ice skating rink, I really have no reason to be okay with not having a lot of good business because I can market an ice skating rink indoor, that is, anytime I want. Okay. So the businesses that you've chosen, you actually do have the ability to create artificial business whenever you want it. You just have to work harder at it certain times of the year. So the first thing we have to consider is cash flow. All right. How much do you need to survive during the off season? Has anybody already studied their cash flow? Have you built a cash flow forecast for your business? Is that something you guys discuss as a group? Hopefully you do. The best practice is for you to understand from today moving forward what your cash flow looks and feels like for the next 13 weeks. What I mean by that is you should be able to project for me how much cash you're going to have in the bank after the deals you do, after the expenses you have, all those things, the sales that you bring in for your deposits. How much money do you have in the bank on October 19th? Whatever it's going to be. 13 weeks, that's a whole quarter. You should be able to tell me that. If you can't, it means you're sort of winging it And that might be okay. Because if you do what you've done and get what you've gotten and it's all been okay in the past, I'm okay with that. But unfortunately, I know that probably 70, 80% of you that are on this call right now, you guys experience serious anxiety once or twice a year about your cash position. And that means you should probably put some effort into making that change. Okay. So, what I mean by are you budgeting to lose is that if you are overspending when you have a lot of money, which we all do, we are like, oh man, things are going great. I just made 8 sales and I did 8 events that I'm doing like boom, and I'm going to get that new lease or I'm going to buy that new whatever. Okay. You went and bought some new equipment for the business. That's great. But sometimes what we need to do is to be realistic about what's really happening with the expenses of the business so that we have enough cash to make it through the slower season. So many of you are inadvertently budgeting to lose, and we should change that. We should look into that differently. So you really have two choices. To change what's happening within this lesson, you can get even busier during your busy season, or you can get busier during your off-peak season. Now, I would like you to go to the chat. Tell me which of those is the most likely to be good for you and your business without knowing anything else about what we're talking about today. Would you? Your choices are one, busier during busy season, or do you want to get busier in the off-peak season? Do you want to create business when you have none, or do you want to get even busier at the time when you have the most business? Off-peak, off-peak, off-peak. Rocky's that guy. He says both. I get it. Okay. I probably live in your camp, Rocky, but for right now, I'm going to have you pick one of those, just even in your mind. That's fine. Okay, so all of you are saying off peak for what's happening. So interestingly, I agree that we can make a dent in what's happening for your cash flow and your seasonality by choosing off peak, off season work. Yes, you can. Oddly, I'm going to recommend that you do number one. I'm going to recommend during some of these strategies that you get busier, even though we're going to talk about both, and I'm going to explain why, right? It's not going to be a secret. So if you want to maximize revenue, the easiest growth is just to optimize and maximize what's happening in peak season. I know this because when you look at like an accounting scorecard, like what we would do in Mentor Pods, or if you want to look at your QuickBooks, your gross margin percentage will be higher when you are busier than when you are slower because you're able to sell extras and upgrades because you have a higher volume of sale, you have a higher statistical chance of being able to sell more to those customers. Let me say it differently. If you have 10 or 30 events over the course of your peak season, it is easier for you to sell one or two more things and to gain an average dollar sale that goes up by a couple $100s to those 10 or 30 customers than it is to find 10 new customers during the off-peak season. It is easier to achieve greater profitability and more money to be held in your hands during peak season than it is for you to go find the business during off-peak season. So now I have to take my hat off to Rocky. The answer is you should be doing both. But which one should you work on first? This is the first one you should work on. You should work on maximizing your revenue generating opportunities for your existing business for what it is that you do, because it's going to be the fastest payoff for what you're going to see, and it's the most evergreen. Okay, so how can you do that? We're going to tell you how. We can raise rates. We can discount less. Discounts come. Scott, you have a question? Go for it.
You threw that word evergreen, and I just
Yes.
touch on that for a second before you move to this next point, please.
Yeah, so evergreen, I'm going to use a different analogy. Jumper cables versus gasoline or fuel. Evergreen means this thing is gonna stay working year round, regarding an evergreen tree, a pine tree. So when you work on an evergreen concept or a process, you do it once and it will pay off forever. Okay. The things that we're going to talk about having to do with off-season work, they're a little bit more like jumper cables. They're like giving your business a jolt temporarily, but they don't commonly work for you for years to come. Thanks for the question, Scott. If anybody has any questions, you can see I'm watching you. I'll catch you and I'll jump in right in and address your question. Okay. Raise your rates as long as you know that you're priced fairly in the market. Discount less. Discounts come from only one place, from your bottom line. If you're discounting what you do as part of your philosophy of business, that's fine, as long as we're not complaining about it after the fact. Okay. So if a discount is part of what you do, like a Walmart or a Costco, so be it. But if you're a premium service provider and you're discounting too much, it's coming directly from your bottom line. A little nugget, my statistics suggest that I want your profitability after payroll to be 8 to 18% for your business net. So I want your net profit to be between 8 and 18%. If you're best in class, this number's in the mid 20s or as high as low 30s once we add in payroll and add backs and other things. Okay, third way to do the how is increase your upgrades. I mentioned this a second ago. I want you to find a fun way that you can add another product and service to your existing clients or the ones that you have coming up in order to get them to spend just a little bit more money with you. All right, each of you has endless possibilities you can come up with for your different business types. Last one, expand geographically. If you think you've tapped the market for where you're at presently, I need you to consider how far will you drive to go do the work that you do. Sometimes a prophet has to leave his or her own flock to be heard. And I love the concept of you sometimes might not feel like you can go do the thing that you need to do in your city anymore. What's amazing is the moment you introduce yourself to just one or two cities next door or even, a region close to you, you find people that are excited to do business with you, like you remember when you first started. And it can be a very, very fun way to re-energize things that are happening during your peak season. Okay, so there's the four levels of how you can maximize that revenue during peak season. All right, number two is during the off-peak season, how can you get busier? We're going to give you a couple strategies on this. First thing is to create residencies for what it is that you do. Now, I am speaking specifically to the entertainment side of the people on the call. However, if you want me to improvise and make a parallel suggestion to you or your business, when I get to the end of this, or if we have time for the Q&A, I'll be happy to address that, okay? Just pointing that out. So residencies as it relates to entertainment, audiovisual, or anything having to do with event entertainment. That could be magic, it could be balloons, it could be anything that we think of for this. If you can do and find the right program directors at places like country clubs, bowling alleys, skating rinks, municipalities for outdoor rec related items, and I'm not talking about bars. Interestingly, yes, you could go to bars, but it's not what I'm recommending. I'm recommending higher end restaurants and retail in lifestyle centers and other places that are similar like that. What we're going to do is we're going to go after those locations and say, hey, we have a mutual need. You have a need to keep people and foot traffic where you're at for longer, because if they stay longer, they spend more money. And I have a need to put fresh new entertainment peeps to work and to get them some reps. I'm going to tell you, they're highly trained and they're not brand new. They just don't have 5 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience, or they have 2 months of experience. We need to assure them we're not going to embarrass them. Okay. And you have to have a level of service. But instead of you going into it saying you think it's going to cost you $300, $400, $500, $600, we negotiate with our people to say, how would you like to have an event every Thursday night? How would you like it if I put you to work and we say to this person or this company, how about if we come in for $200 or $300? Or maybe you do it at cost and you do it at 150. Either way, finding residencies will help you build and keep your people busy. All right. And it's a great way to just break into new markets. Every single time you're in front of a potential customer, you have a chance to book peak season events. All right. Hidden opportunities. When you look at just one of the market segments for entertainment, which would be higher education, middle school dances, high school dances, things of the like, I'm just going to show one example of the idea of hidden opportunities. Most people just focus on the big money jobs of homecomings and proms. I'm only using this example to say that if someone has a pile of DJ equipment, a fantastic personality, they know how to use a microphone, and they understand music programming and customer service, they can do any one of those other things that is on the screen. And the same holds true for somebody who only does weddings or somebody who only does bar and bat mitzvahs. You have hidden opportunities to service those customers for more events than you can presently think of that will be worth your time during the off season. That's the takeaway. So I know that if you're good at homecomings and proms, you're going to be great at graduation parties. You're going to be great at doing those pep rallies. And if that doesn't really strike you as being something that's very natural to you, give me a call. I'll talk to you about it. It should come pretty easily. It just takes a little bit of effort. Complementary services on top of that. Okay. So can you name two complementary businesses with inverse seasonality? I'm going to pause for 1 second. Rocky, your comment about the bars. The interesting thing about the bars is it wasn't about the pay. I was referencing that I want to keep quality entertainers out of bars because that's not the atmosphere that I want them to train in. My history and my number of students we have in mentor pods and the last 25 years of life is that those two things aren't directly compatible, and if they are, it's only for a very short period of time because one will split or splinter the other. So but yeah, bars pay horribly, but schools can pay really well. Next week, I'm working on a $30,000 homecoming. So, yeah, to be continued. Crazy stuff. Okay, who can name? I'm looking for a hand raise. Who can name two businesses that have inverse seasonality? 55 senior communities care centers. Maybe, maybe. Anybody else? Low hanging fruit on this? Did I lose you guys? We asleep? Take a look at the screen. Here's the answer of one that I'll fly through. Think about a landscaping company and snow removal. I am talking about, in the Midwest or someplace where it snows. Companies that are doing residential or commercial landscaping or landscaping maintenance in the winter do snow removal. Make sense? They can't possibly keep their staff members as busy during the seasonal switch, so they put them inside trucks and they clear and plow snow. All right? That's just kind of how it is. Scott.
So we have this phenomenon here in Arizona we refer to as snowbirds. All
Yeah,
those people from the Midwest who escape the snow who come here.
that's right.
But when the snowbirds leave, those same facilities have people who live here in Arizona who still need entertainment.
There you go. That's a great example that you guys can use live based on your stuff. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good one. So this is actually a perfect lead into this slide, which is what could you do to apply that to your business? That's the takeaway is put your thinking cap on and say, what can I do to use somebody else's complementary seasonality to my advantage? How can I leverage that information? And I want you to think about that. Here's a fun way to think about that if you want to jumpstart it for anybody in entertainment or servicing that side of it. Keep us in mind for is a great statement to get the thoughts going. So let's say that you finished up a corporate event or a nonprofit event or a wedding for a customer. What email or communication would you have either on the phone or with the customer to say, and by the way, also keep us in mind for blank. And then there's a current list. You may have a different styled list for that. Maybe you're going to go to AI and ask the question, hey, what are some complementary things that we can use? But either way, that is the takeaway for that. Okay. So the last option on this portion is to leave the region. And this one's interesting. So if you take your talent and inject it into somebody else's peak season, this can be very, very fun and rewarding. Okay. So if I hypothetically am only really busy during 2 seasons, what if I transplant myself to another part of the country when you're slow? What if I say, I love traveling. I'll come work for you during these months. So now you don't have to hire somebody new. You can use somebody trustworthy that is maybe on a higher caliber than you've ever used in the past. And we're sort of solving two problems at once. Okay. So what happens if you could inject yourself into somebody else's peak season? I'm going to show you two graphs now. This is the multi-app DJ business in the Midwest region. Now I'm going to show you on the example on the East Coast. This is what this looks like in South Florida. So I'm going to flip back and forth. And what's the takeaway? There's your snowbird, Scott, by the way. There it is. It happens to us too. The takeaway here is that I have a couple customers that are in South Florida, right? If I were talking to Jeff Green right now, and I said to Jeff, hey, Jeff, you're having a hiring problem. One of the things I might say to him is, hey, Jeff, have you considered contacting one of the really great companies in my region or in Philly and say, what if I bring you guys down? What if we do a deal? What if we have somebody come park themselves for 6 weeks during my busiest season and I'll put them up in an Airbnb, et cetera. So there you go. There's some really, really good opportunities for what happens in that range. Okay. So in summary, let's just review. Staying booked year round. You need to understand your seasonality for what you're going to be doing. Once you have truly looked at it, studied it, and we need to do a couple years at a time to make sure that it's really thoughtfully correct, because you can't really make crazy decisions about your business without a couple years of data. Then what we can do is decide if we want to change it. I'd say half of my clients that have extreme seasonality, they need the seasonality in order to recharge, in order to get ready and do what they need to. One of my customers that's in Chicago is purely a school dance company. Okay, they do about $1.5 million a year in school dances only. They need the off season in order to recharge, recalibrate, and do all the things exactly. Like they need that. Other people are built to be busy. Some of you run, 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 and then the moment that busy season ends, you don't know what to do with yourself, and you go into seasonal depression. because of it. I mean, it's a normal thing. It's a normal thing in the event industry. Once you decide whether you're going to change it or not, either way, we're going to plan for those dollars. We're going to make sure that we understand what's happening with our financials. That way, if we know that we're going to have a slower season with our cash flow, we budget accordingly. That way, it can sting less. It'll still sting. It'll still mean we're eating out less during the off season, but it means that we're not going to say, "Oh my gosh, I can't make payroll next week." Okay. Choose the methods that you're going to deploy if you're going to make a change, and let's not do them all at the same time. All right, we're going to choose those methods and then see what happens. Market those methods accordingly, take action, work your plan, right? I want you to trust the process of whatever it is that you put into place, and then occasionally review what's happening and recalibrate. So I'm going to challenge you right now, based on the things that we discussed about what it is that you think you're going to do. What is your best takeaway? Put it in the chat right now. What is the thing that you will take action on from this session? One thing. I'm only looking for one thing. What is one thing that you will do for your business in order to assess? Are you just assessing it? Are you actually going to take action and go try and book some pool parties? What are you going to do for your business having or learning something from this session here from today? And I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have after we just get clear of this next slide and after you answer this for me. Okay, so we've got, okay, Scott's saying he wants to get busier during the busy season. You can do that. Um, Added effort. Rocky's going to get even more profitable during busy season. Greg, we can address your question if that's a question. Busier in peak season, look for more upgrades. Okay, good stuff. Excellent. Part of the magic of this lesson is that I want you guys to understand that I'm really about deciding what not to do before you decide what to do. You know, there were like 15 different things in this lesson that you could do when you wake up tomorrow morning to improve your business. That's a bad idea. I really want you to focus on one thing, and you need to be good at discernment, which not everybody is. Sometimes you need to bounce it off somebody else, whatever, and pick the one thing that's going to do great for your business. So good stuff. Just a real quick note, once again, if you want the slides or if you want to connect, just email me at matt@mentorpods.com, and I'd be happy to share anything that you would like to know about this topic or anything else. I'm an open book, extremely approachable, happy to help. All right, Scott, I believe that now we can take this where you'd like to go. We can either answer any questions, we can end, I can just sit back and relax. It's up to
No,
you.
no, 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 no. I'm sure the crew has questions, but I'm just like biting my tongue about the inverse in another place because this group is over 12 years old. And for that entire time, I have been screaming. I live in Arizona, and between June, July, and August, there's nothing happening here. And those 3 months are high season in California, where I'm originally from. And I'm actually going back there this weekend, planning for a 3-day event for a client. So there is work to be had if you're willing to take the drive. And the same thing is true for Las Vegas, which is just a jaunt away, folks. And there's plenty of work all year long. Doesn't matter how hot it is in Las Vegas. I'll leave it at that. Please raise your hand or raise your voice. Matt is very approachable and we'll be happy to tell you that you're right or wrong.
Well, that's not in my playbook, but okay. Let's go. Does anybody have any questions? You can either use the hand raise function or raise your hand on the screen. I'm happy to answer any questions if Scott will give us the time. Totally up to you guys.
The floor is open. Please jump in. I think Felicia's about to unmute. I see the face.
I was just trying to figure out how to phrase the wording. When you were talking about the example that you gave about going to like the retail centers and everything for entertainers, what would be the similar objective to do with a clothing company? We do rentals for suits and tuxedos. What would be a similar suggestion?
Where is the profit center for your business? Is it in retail sale or in rental? I know you do
rental more so.
Okay. And remind me, what is the seasonality peaks for your business?
I mean, we're pretty much busy from like September to May, but more so like the same wedding months is April and prom, and then for weddings and prom, and then you get like October, November is just sheer wedding volume.
Okay. During the off season, what I would do is probably lean into things that had higher volumes of bulk rentals at the same time. I'm thinking through that for things like gatherings that have something to do with higher education, high school, and anything that has to do with something marketing based. I'm thinking ad agency. There's probably some angle where we can find people that need to be dressed, just like houses need to be staged, right? And we have furniture rental companies. There's probably something that we can find our way into that requires rentals of exactly what it is that you do. I would think that this would be a distraction during the peak season. Okay. So I'm
Yeah,
literally telling you, if we were talking about trying to do this during your peak season, I would say this is a horrible idea. Let's not talk about this. Let's go get more weddings and more homecomings and whatever. I'm thinking about
agreed.
off the wall crazy ideas where we can drum up 10 or 15% of the revenue that we don't have right now through a bunch of little nibbles in things. So that's probably the direction that I would go. You're challenging me, and I'd love to actually try harder. Maybe not on the spot in front of everybody, but talk to you about it. If you want to talk, I'm happy to brainstorm.
Yeah, I'll send you an email about getting the slides too, because I like the graphs.
Awesome. Great
Excellent.
question.
I'm going to jump in and also say the gala calendar is your best friend.
Mm.
Because galas are formal events that require formal attire. They're either looking to purchase or to rent. And whether it's the heart ball, the fur ball, or anything of that nature, and some of them do happen in the off season.
And say a
Scott's
lot of them
exactly
still
right.
happen during busy season.
Yeah.
I know the
Well,
one thing that we've been really busy over the summer with destination weddings that we've been doing a lot of with people traveling, and then a lot of cruises too, like people who need formal wear for cruises. That we've had a busier than normal off season this year. And that's been the biggest reasons why, though it wasn't something we were actively pursuing, it has been why it has been busy.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Felicia. Pearl, you have something to jump in on?
Oh, no, I was gonna say galas and holiday balls for Felicia, but you said it, so
Okay. And Trevor, it was interesting that you and I shared the same 2 months that we're both busy. And you're new to the business. How is this coming at you?
Yeah, no, certainly, yeah, like the busy wedding months make sense. One thing because I really piqued my interest, and I'm having a conversation right now with some folks about starting residencies.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts about approaching those conversations? Just from like a sales lens, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, what I would do is I would work on, like anything else, the human relationship, walking through the door, trying to connect with the right person the first time, and be very inquisitive. Ask questions. One of the things that happens is when you say something like in a non-traditional ask, "Can I talk to the person that does events or works on a thing?" If said the right way, they perceive it as a sales ask. And that's not a horrible thing, but you need to be aware of who you're talking to because the person that manages the activities calendar is not the same person that books events at some of these places. So that's important. Country clubs would be a great example. The special events director is generally not the same person as the activities director,
Correct.
okay, at a country club. So keep that in mind, Trevor. But the conversation is very authentic. It is very transparent. I'd like to know if you are open-minded to a discussion about an opportunity that may serve both of us. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to work on a partnership and then explain it. Say, I know that you guys have a DJ. Let me just use an example of a country club that has a 4th of July DJ at their pool. I know you have a DJ for 4th of July and for Memorial Day and Labor Day. My question is, how would you like to have a DJ every Sunday afternoon? Because I think my friend told me Sundays are relatively slow for you guys. Is that correct? Or maybe you don't go for the slow day. Maybe you say Saturday afternoon because it's their busiest. This is about your strategy that you choose for them. How would you like to have a DJ every weekend for that? They're like, we can't afford that. We have no budget. I totally understand. What I'm coming to you is saying I'm willing to do this for 1/8 the price that you're used to paying for these other situations. And I'm talking, and you really need to rip the band-aid off immediately because otherwise they're just going to think that you're trying to sell them something high price. And say, I'm talking like for less than a couple $100s here. I'm talking about this. They're like, okay, tell me more. Plain and simple, I need to keep our team busy and I need a training ground to teach them how to make lots of announcements. So this is announcing your special daiquiri drink special. This is announcing what's happening with the pork nachos, whatever it is. Like it's all these things and interacting with guests and taking requests. And at the same time, they're making announcements while they're pressing play because that takes reps. It takes reps to learn how to do that. And you explain this to them and they go, okay, tell me more. And then you're in to discuss the thing. You can modify that exact same concept across any of those facility types and just insert specialty here. And it should be a relatively good conversation, Trevor.
Yeah, no, I like the kind of the framework around partnership. And then
Yeah.
training ground too, I think would be a really strong like negotiation lever.
We need to establish early on, though, that you are not going to embarrass them and that you're not experimenting on them. Those are two things that would make the sale go the exact wrong way for where you want it to be. So work on your sales scripting for that. But I think if you want to know the likelihood of success, I would say that it's probably around 20%. I think it's going to take you having 10 conversations to have two interested parties that are going to take this to an executive board and whatnot, because a lot of people are just not open-minded to change in general. And that statistic comes directly from me working with companies that I work with on residencies. So don't get discouraged is my point. Okay. Because you're going to be creating a market where there isn't one. Pearl, I see your hand. What's your question?
Yes, thank you for all the information. I was wondering, for me, it's review and calibrate was what I had picked. So I'm thinking there's a lot of data that you could be looking at and reviewing. What data would you suggest starting at, given, all the graphs and things that you've been putting together?
Well, it depends what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to accomplish being busier year round? Is that what you're trying to accomplish? Or are you trying to accomplish something else about your business? Can you explain a little bit more?
I'm trying to get a baseline. So, and I'm unique in the sense that I do more corporate events.
Okay.
And because of the direction I went with COVID, my base is nationwide. So I actually don't necessarily have a slow season. I have a steady year
Okay.
because of that. So it's like, okay, what's my baseline? So because, to your point, one of your examples is like, oh, I do have a slow season. I just didn't realize it. Or maybe I don't, and it really is a baseline. Like, so that's what I would like to understand.
Okay. Well, think about a doctor's office or a hospital, and think about the one thing that gets checked every single time that a patient goes anywhere. What's the very first thing that somebody does?
No.
Pearl, I'm asking you, what's the first thing that a doctor or that is always being monitored?
I don't know.
Okay, so there's
Heart
usually a
rate.
heart monitor, heart rate and oxygen, right? These are the things that are the telltale signs on a human that something is wrong. Broken foot, brain bleed, whatever, heart rate changes, oxygen level changes. For a business, I believe that that is your financial scorecard, okay? And that is your understanding of the general basics of what's happening on a profit and loss statement. Now, profit and loss doesn't tell the whole tale. There's more to it. So we do this thing in mentor pods, and if you email me, I'll send this to you for free, okay? This accounting scorecard or financial scorecard. What I recommend is that you start sampling your data on a weekly basis. How much revenue did I bring in last week? What were my COGS, cost of goods sold? What was my fixed expenses? What was my net profit? I want you to do that every single week on Monday morning or Tuesday morning. What that's going to do is it's going to start to give you an instantaneous approach to the beating heart of your business. And then you start seeing that, you start zooming in and out as needed. You start to look at that monthly and then quarterly and then annually. The thing is that I can see from a mile away a sales problem from the financial scorecard. I can see from a mile away a marketing problem from the financial scorecard. I can see a quality control problem from the from the financial scorecard. So rather than me asking you a question about, well, what are you trying to fix in your business? You're like, oh, I want more sales and whatever. The first one that any of you should do, if you're not tracking anything, is to do your financial scorecard all the time because it is the heart monitor of what's happening in your business that tells us if something else is broken. And then once we see that something else is broken, we can treat it and triage it as needed. But that's what I would do, Pearl. I would start just doing financial scorecard check-ins. And guys, I really believe in this concept called messy, MESS, manual entry spreadsheets. In this world of AI and everything does everything for us, that's great. I need you to put your hands on your actual data and let it affect you. I need you to have a physiological response to seeing that something is awesome, so it motivates you, or I need you to be really frustrated that your numbers last week were not good, so you go sell some more stuff and get into it. Okay. So just a couple pages out of my playbook for you. Great
Thank
question.
you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Yeah, please
And
if you email me, just ask me for the financial scorecard and I'll send it over to you. Okay.
okay, Scott, I see that you put his Facebook page, which probably has his email, but I'm lazy. So would you put his actual email in the chat?
I have Matt's other email address. I don't think I have
There you
his
go.
Minterpod address.
I just
Th
put it in the chat for you guys.
Thank you, Matt. And just a sidebar, because you know I'm always about this. Look at his email address. It is not info, it's his name. It's not Gmail, it's his company. So branding is so important, people. That's all I'm going to say. Matt, what did you call that? I was typing. What do you call that financial thing? Ask for the financials. What?
It's just one
Scorecard.
of our four. It's one of our
Scorecard.
four tenant scorecards. We have four pillar scorecards. Financial is one of them. Financial, sales, marketing, and quality control.
Okay.
Yep.
You said it. I'm dropping it in the chat. I love that messy expression as well. I'm a hands-on guy, so I get it.
Excellent.
We got 2 minutes. Anybody, anything? Matt, are you still out of Temecula, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm still here in Temecula, and I do have a question. I'm trying to get into the winery industry. We have a lot of wineries here, and they all seem to only want live music. And I'm trying to figure out a way of convincing them that a DJ who can play anything for everybody, for anybody, would be a better solution. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said for a mismatch of expectations, and wineries go together with DJs like red wine goes with Snickers bars. Um, and I hate to say that I'm a DJ. I think we need to find a way to level up the DJ offering that you can put in place with this. I think that might come into an offering with a DJ live instrument combo or somebody who's doing a little bit of flair. Um, yeah, that would be my recommendation. Otherwise, you're really gonna find the bottom of the budget and basically be doing something that somebody is basically they just can't afford what they want to do, so you become their third option. Um,
And to be, that was I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't know if Matt plays any instruments, but I have done several events that are more of I don't know, posh, I guess, where
mhm.
it's been a combination between a DJ and the DJ actually playing instruments. And it works wonderful. And besides, when the band goes on break, what are they listening to?
Well,
Bingo.
Right.
it's a perspective matter. We become a live musician that happens to play program music during our breaks rather than a DJ that plays an instrument. So this is a marketing flair at that point. And it gets you in the door, Matt, that's the point. It gets you in the door because now you're not a DJ because they don't want a DJ. They want live music. So give them live music and then DJ for them. You could even fake playing a live instrument. No, I'm
That's what
just
I was
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't do it.
No, but the addition of a percussionist or a saxophone in coordination with your DJ services is just off the hook. And so even if it happens to be, a high school student who's in the band, or where's Linda, the marching band, right? Or they're going to bring in their, snare or their drum kit or whatever, and they're just going to match beats with whatever it is that you're playing, and all of a sudden now it's live.
Totally.
Huge experience.
Hey guys, I want to apologize. I must depart based on timing. I actually have a coaching session I need to jump into. I look forward to meeting or talking with any of you guys. If you like our style, what it is that we present, the type of information. We have a pod that's launching in January. We'd love to talk to you about it. It's in this Mentor Pods program. Pod 12 launches. But you guys are great, and I love this group. So I would love to be back. Scott, if you have something that you want filled in with a topic or something, please ask, and I would be happy to come back. All right.
Outstanding. Thank you so very much, Matt. We appreciate all of that. Good luck and continued success, my friend.
Nice to meet you, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today.
Wow.
That is a wrap for Event Ensemble.